Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nate Crespo, your host for today and forever, and welcome back to another episode of the Lawyers in the Making podcast, where it is my job to focus on the unique journeys to the law and law school of professionals in the legal field and law students. But let's talk about what we're doing today, because today we have another wonderful guest. She is a Baylor University School of Law graduate and currently works as the owner of Ramos James Law PLLC. She's held past positions as an attorney at Pastrana Law Firm and as an attorney at Christensen Law Firm PLLC. And finally, she is an author of her new book, fresh off the presses, Point Take, Brilliant Business Advice from Women at the Top. Excited to have her on the podcast today. Mrs. Laura Ramos James, welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today?
Before going any further, I'd like to say a quick word about the sponsor of this podcast, Rhetoric. Back in episode 25, I had the privilege of having the CEO, Luke Yingling, on the podcast, and ever since that episode, fell in love with the product. Rhetoric takes user briefs and motions and compares them against the text of opinions written by judges to identify ways to tailor their arguments to better persuade the judges handling their cases. Rhetoric's focus on persuasion and helps users find new ways to improve their odds of success through more persuasive arguments. Know more, win more. I was able to see a demo of the product, and its cutting-edge technology and fascinating features make for a product I am proud to sponsor, and further shows the new digital era the field of law has been entering thus far on my journey doing this podcast. If you decide to book a demo, let them know Nate sent you. Be sure to check them out in the show notes below or at userhetoric.com. One word, userhetoric.com. Now, back to the show.
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here, Laura. I'm very excited this morning. I'm ready to go. I'm all hyped up. I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm always hyped up. But, Laura, before we get started, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, like you said, my name's Laura Ramos James. I own a law firm, personal injury law firm in Austin, Texas. It's where we have our main office. We take cases all over Texas. I was born and raised in Mexico. That's why the accent. And you're not going to hear a Texas accent. It's going to be a foreign accent. And I guess, well, I'm a wife. I'm a mom to two little girls. And I am a practicing attorney, even though I'm the owner of the law firm. I do have my docket of cases that I still handle. And, just busy as can be, but loving it.
Well, first I have to say, congratulations on the two little girls. I'm late to the congratulations. I always am on this podcast, but I always have to give it out because I want a nice family myself one day. So it's wonderful to hear that. And of course, I have to ask, where in Mexico are you from?
Thank you. I am from a little city, really more like a town called Monclova, and that is 2 hours west of Monterrey, if you've ever heard of it. So it's in the northern part of Mexico, but the south of the U.S., very close to the border. If you drive, it's about an 8-hour drive to a border town from where I'm from. Kind of in the middle of nowhere. We don't have an airport. Kind of hard to get to, but yeah, really, really beautiful, small little city.
Do you still have family there? Do you still go back every so often?
My entire family's there. And I try to have them come here because it's kind of complicated to travel with the kids, and we had the pandemic in the middle of it. But I mean, I just went, I want to say like 2 months ago to visit. My dad was sick, went to visit, I stayed there, and it's incredible, like in 1 year how things change. But yeah, they usually come visit.
Well, that's fantastic. But we have to go all the way back to the wonderful year of 2008. You were at St. Mary's University. You actually studied abroad in Brazil, which is amazing. I love Brazil. I've never been to Brazil. I want to go to Rio de Janeiro. I love Brazilian soccer, Yoga Bonito. I love it so much. They're my favorite players of all time, every single time. But you were there in 2008, and then later that year, you ended up at Baylor University School of Law. So simply put, Laura, why'd you go to law school?
Well, that's a good question. I went to law school because when I was little, that's kind of what always I always found like it was my calling and it is what I wanted to do. And if you've seen, we're friends on LinkedIn, and if you've seen my posts every here and again, I'll talk about how I'm a a survivor of a dog attack. I was bit by a German Shepherd when I was 3 years old, and he took a piece of my nose. I had to have plastic reconstructive surgery, and then a couple of other procedures growing up. So it was a very traumatic experience, but it kind of shaped my path and who I became in life. The things that I dealt with, I guess, informed what route I was going to take and what things I was passionate about, advocating for people and the underdog and people that find themselves in pain and going through trauma when someone else caused it, and people who failed to take responsibility, holding them accountable. It just drove me. It was my passion since I was little, and that never changed. I just didn't quite know how I was going to get there. At some point I applied to law school in Mexico where I grew up, and eventually I ended up here. But I would say like twists and turns, but I always wanted to be a lawyer, I guess, at heart.
Yeah, you said something that tips me off to the epitome, the tagline. I guess it's like the motto of this podcast. But there's no straight path to law school. There's only your own unique path. And even if there's those twists and turns, there's different avenues you go down. You eventually always come back. You go to law school and you figure it all out. But let's talk about law school. Let's talk about the first year. People love it. People hate it. Some people have came on this podcast and said, it's one of my favorite years of my entire life. Laura, how was it for you?
It was horrible. It was a nightmare. And I do have to preface this by saying that I'm a big Baylor law supporter. I love our school has this practice court program that really prepares you to be in the courtroom. And I wanted to be a litigator, right? I wanted to be in people's faces and, having them tell the truth and all that stuff and objections. And that just seems so exciting to me. But I grew up and, partially because of my my traumatic experience with what I went through, I really thrived in school, because that's where I put all my energy towards. But when I came to the US, I came here when I was 18. I didn't speak hardly any English. I was definitely not at the level where I could start college. So I worked towards that. I was an exchange student. Side note, that's where I met a friend from Brazil, and ultimately ended up falling in love with the culture and wanting to go there. But going back to the conversation, I then went to college, and I was still doing pretty good for having just learned English when I was 18. But when I started law school, it was a whole different level. As you can imagine, you're writing and your vocabulary has to be at a completely, above standard level. And I definitely did not have that. I was very, I didn't do good. Like, my grades were not good. And I, called my dad and I said, I'm going to give up, because it's something I had never gone through before. Like, it was almost like a culture shock of, I'm not doing good, even though I've done good. This is all I know in my life, to do good in school. I did terribly. But luckily my dad, when I was on the phone with him, and this is like, I'm making it sound prettier than it was. I was like on the floor crying and like completely depressed and, like just horrible. He said, okay, so you don't want this anymore? No problem. I'm gonna drive there tomorrow and I'll pick you up, and you don't have to, just come back home, and you don't have to do it anymore. And something clicked where I was like, that's right. Nobody's forcing me to do this. This is something I want to do. And I can do it. Like, why wouldn't I be able to do it? Like, I just have to keep at it if it's what I want. And so I kind of had like a come to Jesus moment. And I ended up, I kept trying. And eventually, when I graduated, I did have like, the high A's and all the good grades. But it was definitely not during the first year. And of course, I had all those moments of doubt of like, will anyone ever hire me? Like, is this really what I want? And it was, it was full of those moments. So first year of law school was an absolute nightmare.
No, listen, we all have those moments where we're on the floor crying. and we're trying to figure it out, and everything's just overwhelming, and it's the world is falling on our face, and we don't know what to do. But you say it was a culture shock. It was a tough time, but you got through it. What are some ways you got through law school? What are some tips you'd have for people that you used yourself getting through it, being able to excel and being able to get those A's?
Yeah, I think it was just a matter of, well, one, it was I had a good support system. I had my dad giving me encouragement, and I had a couple of friends who, I mean, I had friends, right? But I had a couple of really good friends who knew what to say, like, it's okay, just cry it out, just show up. And that was true, and it remains true, in my career now that I've practiced for well over a decade. It remains true. If it's something you love and it's your passion and you keep showing up, I mean, not for anything, they say, just showing up is 80% of it. And truly staying at it, it just eventually, it's just like anything. It's not rocket science. You figure it out, you overcome difficulties if it's what you want, right? Because if it isn't, and if you discover that's not your passion, that's completely fine. But you're not going to pour your passion into it, and it's probably not going to work out, because you just don't have that fire to keep, being knocked down and then stand back up again, be knocked down, get back up again. I think only if it's your passion does it work out.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that. I think passion is such an interesting word that I've been toying around with myself just through this podcast, because I sort of realized that something like this for me was such a passionate project for me. I'll have like three podcasts in one day. I'll get to that third one. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, I can't even talk anymore. Like, I just have no brain energy, but it's just the passion comes in. I get that fiery feeling. I'm like, all right, I just got to do it. And I get through it. I do a great job. And it just feels great when you get through it. But you're talking about having that support system. How important was having a support system for you going throughout law school and having people to turn to and having people to talk to?
It was crucial. I mean, it really was critical. I I've always been kind of like a lone wolf in the sense that I try to be independent and a self-starter, and it's just like a thing that since I was little, that's how I felt. That's how I felt confident in myself. If I could do things on my own, I was a tennis player, so that should tell you something. I never was relying on other people. I was trying to just rely on myself, but um, I truly in life have discovered that one person doesn't have all the answers, and that we are better if we are working as a team, or if we have people, even just cheering us on. They don't really have to do it for us, right? Like my dad wasn't going to go take those exams, those horrible law school exams, or, sit through those classes or read, hundreds of pages every night. But just telling me like, oh, it's fine, like it's no worries, if you want to quit, we'll quit, and that's um it's no problem. So support system was critical. It doesn't have to be 10 people. It really, just a couple people that truly genuinely care about you and will support you, has been very important to me.
Yeah, I once again couldn't agree more. My mom listens to all these podcasts. Hi, mom. But
I'm a
just something like that. She always lets me know. She's like, "Oh, I was listening to the episode today. It was really good," and that just keeps me going. That keeps me motivated. Even if she's the only listener, that's fine. I'll let my mom listen. If it's just her, that's fine. Mom, you could have all the podcast episodes you want, but it just further motivates me, further makes me more passionate. Now, when you were in law school, you had two internships. You were a law clerk at the Pastrana law firm, and you're also a law clerk at Slack and Davis. So can you talk about those experiences? How were they? Did you love it? Did you hate them? What'd you learn? Sort of stuff like that.
Yeah, oh goodness, it feels like a lifetime ago. But my first internship at the Pastrana law firm, it's a very successful law firm. At the time, it was just one attorney, and he was handling catastrophic injury cases for immigrant workers. The majority of them were. So he was putting his knowledge of the Spanish language and culture to the service of those people that are, part of the backbone of society. And I found that incredibly inspiring. I'm a Spanish speaker, so I figured I could contribute, and be there, and at the same time learn from him, someone so experienced and so, who had done so well in his career. And he had me, all summer. I was there for the summer. He had me work on this motion for summary judgment. And I just thought I was like, I just thought I was like already a lawyer, and I felt so smart and all this stuff. And it helped my confidence too, because if you remember, like the first year is that year where I was doing horribly. And of course I didn't have like, just big law firms knocking on my door trying to have me as an intern by any means. But this law firm was located in Austin, which is, a very cool city. I don't know if you've been here, but you should if you haven't. And it was, a couple hours away from Waco, where I went to law school. So it kind of recharged my batteries. There's a lot of outdoor activities here. There's a lake, or a couple lakes, and hiking and all that stuff. So it was exactly what I needed. It was a good balance of good balance of I guess the working hard and working the mind, but also kind of taking a break and just thinking about, is this truly, is it still aligning with what I want? What I did discover too is that I actually was starting to get good at at writing, I guess an advanced type of writing, like drafting motions and things like that. And that also helped me fuel that passion again, and kind of continued on to 2L.
So first, I have to say, we talk about Austin, Texas. I've never been there myself. Laura, the bucket list is like so long now, because I get people on here all the time. They're like, oh, you need to go here, you need to go there, you should come here. So now I have so many places I have to do. I have so much traveling to do in the future now. Austin, Texas is definitely on that list. I can't wait to go see it. I've heard the food is fantastic. That's what I'm most interested in. I'm a bit, I'm a bit of a foodie. Maybe I'm just fat. I don't know. But I can't wait to get down there. But going forward, I have to ask this question. How did you sort of figure out personal injury was for you? Because something I love to talk about on this podcast is what you want to do, but especially what you don't want to do. So how did you sort of figure out that personal injury is the path for you? This is what you want to do going forward.
Yeah, I love it. This is gonna, I think this is gonna really align well with, what your podcast is all about. So if you remember back at the beginning, 3 years old, I had this horrible dog bite, that my parents had to deal with and that I dealt with growing up. And then, time goes on, I go to college, law school, all that stuff. When I get out of law school, it was 2011, and again, not the best job or economy, not the best environment to be looking for a job. But I had interned at a district attorney's office my second year of law school, and that was super exciting. I got to see a lot of courtroom activity, and that, I'm like, this is like the movies. This is exactly what I want to be doing. Like, this is how I feel that I can put to service like that passion, like make juries understand what wrong was done to someone. And I loved it, but I couldn't find a job as a prosecutor because, if you also remember, I'm from Mexico, so I had a student visa. And for the government to employ me, they had to get a work visa, and they wouldn't sponsor one for me. So I don't think for anyone. So then what happened is I broadened my horizons, and I said, this is not the end of the road. I had a very limited timeline because I only had 2 months after I graduated law school to find a job that would extend or switch my visa status from student to a work visa. And so I did. I mean, the things that I did to like put myself out there. Now I'm like, well, that's the definition of a hustler. I had no idea I would do something like that, but I just like, I would ask friends like, where are you going home for the summer, or where's home? Oh, I'm going to South Texas. Okay. So then where is that? Can I stay with you for a week? And then I would look up what law firms, and mind you, this is in 2011. So the internet wasn't like super, what it is now, where Google highlights for you and gives you like a lot of like the top 10 and things like that. None of that. But I would find like law firms and just cold call them, mail them my resume. So if I could find an email, if people had emails, I would then send them resumes and cover letters and things like that. And then just make interviews happen that they weren't trying to have, convince them that they needed to hire me. and went to job fairs and all the traditional stuff, of course. But then I finally, there was a boutique firm in South Texas, and they actually specialized in huge catastrophic cases, personal injury cases, but on the defense side. Meaning, I would have to be trying to, if there was an injury victim, I was trying to make sure they didn't get anything from the jury and that they were basically poured out. And I wanted to be in the courtroom. They told me, the day you pass your bar exam, we're going to send you to a deposition and we're going to send you to hearings. Like, we really need a lawyer. And, we need someone that's not afraid of the courtroom. So I'm like, you know what, I'll do it. And I did consult with a mentor who said, try it out. And if nothing else, you'll get courtroom and litigation experience, and that will build up your resume. And I didn't have those amazing grades from day one to show for, but I figured I could have a lot of hearings under my belt and depositions, and so I did. And little did I know, I ended up falling in love with the law firm and the people who work there. I mean, it was incredible, except for I had an aha moment that I've talked to to other people about before, that I was sitting across from a widow who had lost her husband in a terrible accident. And my job was to have her say how the insurance company would employ my law firm, right, to defend those people that had caused accidents. And my job was to have the widow say, I'm completely at peace. I've moved on. I don't need any more counseling. My life is super happy. And, I've met someone else. I'm in love. I don't even remember this guy. When in reality, of course, she was devastated. It was very hard for all of us in the conference room to hold back tears and hearing, how every morning she would, wake up and realize that he was not there anymore. And she had to live on live on one more day without him. And it was just so horrible that I'm like, I belong next to her. I don't belong across a table grilling her about this stuff. Like, this is not my, like, it is my passion, and that it's litigation, but it's not my passion deep down, like the mission and the clients I'm supposed to be helping. So then after that, I started looking for a job as a plaintiff's lawyer. And that's how I, even though I did personal injury from the beginning, it was on the defense side. And then, I went to do went full circle, basically, went on to do defend injury victims like myself.
So you talked about you consulted with a mentor. I love talking about mentors. How important has mentorship been for you throughout your career?
It is part of the theme that we were talking about earlier, the support system and the mentors. I have had and relied on mentors, throughout the years, and more heavily during certain times. For example, when deciding to go to law school, when looking for a job or looking for an internship, and what would be a good fit, and getting their advice when I opened up my own law firm. So there's been certain times, and I realize there are times when you maybe aren't in active search for a mentor, and maybe they just come because of what you're sharing and what you're going through. But when I'm going through those stages, I realize maybe it's my turn to give back, and it's my turn to talk to someone that may need a little push, or may need, some brainstorming together. So
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful thing you said, because sometimes it's a little scary reaching out to people, trying to get those mentors, trying to find those people who can help you. But just like you said, you want to pay it forward. Usually, every single person wants to pay it forward. So that's just a message for people out there who are looking for those mentors, that just reach out, just send a message, because more often than not, they'll answer you, they'll help you out. It reminds me of something I read in a book one time, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, one of my favorite books ever. But he talks about how when he would lecture at these different universities about the sort of 4-hour work week lifestyle kind of thing, he would give the students a sort of assignment, like, find a really famous person and just reach out to him and try to get a conversation sparked. And I know this one kid had actually reached out. It was like one of the higher ups at Google, but he basically had like a relationship with him because they talked about it was like Chinese Buddhism or something. That was like the topic of conversation, and they just were messaging back and forth all the time. So just something
I
like
love
that.
it.
A very perverse example, but just something like that. You should never be afraid to reach out because these people, these lawyers, are more than willing to help out. I know that more than anything. I have all these people come on my podcast. I don't pay them anything. They come out just like yourself, Lord. They just come out because they want to give back. They want to pay it forward. They want to make sure that their wisdom and experiences are getting out there to the world so they can help you figure out what you want to do. But your time at Hodge and James, you were on the other side, but then you switched over. You were the associate general counsel at MedStar Funding for a year, and then you went to the Christensen law firm, and then eventually came all the way back to the Pastrana law firm. Could you talk about those experiences and also that full circle moment of coming all the way back to the Pastrana law firm?
Yeah, absolutely. So it actually my role with MedStar Funding and Christensen Law Firm was actually a dual role. It didn't happen. It didn't happen first MedStar, then Christensen Law Firm. Christensen Law Firm started out with like a handful of cases, and the owner was like, "Hey, I'm starting a law firm, but I don't have enough work for you to do that. So what we're gonna do is for I guess half time you're going to be the general counsel for this funding company that I have, but then also we're going to be starting this law firm, and once the law firm gets going, then that'll be basically your full-time job." And MedStar was a company no longer around. They got acquired, very successful acquisition, but they were a company that was helping injury victims with giving them advances that they may need. Sometimes they're not able to help or support themselves. And so I learned a bunch there. I had a lot of interactions with different people that injury victims come in touch with, going through this the traumatic experiences that they do. And then the Christensen law firm luckily was very successful and did grow, and is now a law firm called DJC here in Austin. And I believe they have an office in Chicago, but it was a Christensen law firm back then. The model was more of a volume type practice. And I was looking for something a little different. And of course, I reconnected with my mentor. And we thought, why don't we try to join forces and see if this works out? It was a wonderful experience when I was with him. I have nothing but great things to say about all my previous employers. But once it became clear that I was reaching the fork in the road where it was probably going to be time to make a decision of, should I start my own practice and pursue my own dreams. Mostly because at that point in his career, my former employer was was finding that he had practiced for decades, and we didn't align on what things we wanted to do or not do, and we thought it was best I would start my own law firm, and got his blessing. We left in the best of terms, and then Ramos James Law came into fruition.
So let's talk about Ramos James Law. Now, if we go back, we were talking about before, we talked about Elizabeth Larrick. She's the only reason I ever found Laura in the first place. I found her through her, but she was one of the first episodes where we talked about starting a law firm and all the struggles that went through, the trials and tribulations that come with starting a law firm. So how was that experience starting your own law firm? What are some struggles that you went through, and how'd you overcome them?
I don't think we have enough time to talk about that, but definitely, to put it in a nutshell, it was incredibly difficult, and the definition of blood, sweat, and tears. But truly, and as I put in the, in the my latest book contribution, I talked about it more in depth. But essentially, it fits, and it's something that you and I already touched upon. If you are driven by passion, you will overcome, you will create, you will build, and you will succeed. And that's the end of it. Passion will make it happen. And so I think that's what it was. But again, I'm not, I guess I'm not sugarcoating it, that now 6 years in, luckily the law firm has worked out and is doing so good. But there were times in the beginning that, it was like, holy cow, like, how are we gonna, how is this gonna happen? Like, how are we gonna handle, this hardship, or, get clients, or, or I don't know, close cases quick enough, or what have you. But, again, you go back to, is this really what you want? And if it is, then I'm a firm believer that it happens.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer as well, Laura, that if you're just passionate enough, it will simply just happen. You will muster something up in order to get it done, no matter what, by any means necessary.
Yeah.
And something I want to ask about, because since you're in the personal injury world, the human interaction is all over the place. The human aspect of law, which I love talking about, because you go through law school, you're reading all these cases, it's just plain text, you're applying laws to the sort of the content of the case, and there's not a lot of human aspect to it. It kind of gets swept under the rug a little bit. Not dissing law school at all. I've never been there myself, so I can't really diss anything. But can you talk about the human aspect of the law, how important, how integral it is for you, and how it's made you more passionate even?
Yes, definitely part of it had to do with having those internships during law school and seeing those concepts that can be kind of dull and can be kind of abstract come to life, and see true, you would read in law school about these verdicts, like $1 million verdicts and all this stuff, and it's like, this is ridiculous. Like, people think like they want to hit the lottery, then buy some tickets. Like, what is happening here? But then I met those workers who lost a leg. I met those widows, who lost their husbands, who couldn't provide for their children. I mean, these are live humans. I mean, real people who are affected by things. And so it truly, having those experiences, those work experiences, ignited that passion, and continued to reaffirm that, yeah, this is exactly my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm a people person, but I can be a nerd. I can nerd out, and I can go and like read the cases and draft the motions and argue and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, to me, why it matters, why it has a deeper meaning, and why I'm so excited to like wake up in the mornings, or like I can work until the late hours of the night, because I think about like, oh, this is for Andrea, and oh, this is for John. Like, I know who I'm helping, and that it is making a difference. And throughout time, the cases that I have handled, and those people whose lives have been changed for the better, I mean, I can tell you that there's likely very few things that are more rewarding than having a client appreciate that what you did for them truly changed their lives.
Yeah, first, I love to hear the fact that you're excited to wake up in the morning, you're jumping out of bed to go write some motions, which maybe doesn't sound like the most exciting thing in the world. But really, it is for you when you have that purpose, you have that passion. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you're just gonna do it. And
Yeah.
obviously, we're always nerding out here on this podcast. I'm inherently a nerd and a people person at the same time, just for the pure fact I have a podcast. So kind of need to be a people person. But
Yeah.
the nerding out, I love the nerding out. But let's talk about your new book, fresh off the presses. Point
Yes.
taken, brilliant business advice from women at the top. It is an Amazon bestseller in entrepreneurship management, women in business, management skills, entrepreneurship, business development, and education and reference. You're hitting all these milestones. But can you talk about the book? What are some important takeaways that you would want people to take away from the book?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually contributed a chapter to this book with 10 other women that are, on top of the world in the respective industries. There's another lawyer that's also, part of the book. But basically, my chapter is called The Drip, and it focuses on this, I guess, distilling what's going to make for a successful and sustainably profitable business. Obviously, like, there are thousands of business books, and I can't even think of like how many courses or lectures or classes. So one chapter is not gonna, it's not gonna resolve or give you all the answers, but this is, my experience and what I can tell you in the many years that I've had the law firm, like what were the cornerstones of the success it's had. And it started with the passion, and it truly relied a lot on discipline. And the discipline, I mean, everything from, like we talked about, like being so excited and getting to it, but actually doing it consistently and doing it and getting up and showing up and showing up and doing it. And it may seem like a small thing, just to like go mail a letter or go check an email or go respond to a motion. But over the course of time, those small habits or things that may not seem very consequential turn out, have huge outcomes. And it starts, the chapter starts with an analogy of a drip on a boulder, a drip of water, and how you would never think that a tiny little drip is going to do anything to a massive rock formation. But over the course of time, it will do what no other power tool will do to it. It will destroy it, it will deform it, it will leave its mark. And that's the same thing, I feel like with our behavior and our discipline, we can accomplish in a business if we have that. But it has to come from within. It has to be a true passion, because otherwise you get burned out. Because you can have a successful business that blossoms, and I mean, it's great for a year, but are you going to do it for 10 years? Like, are you going to have the discipline for that many years? Usually, if there's no passion behind it, I guess my proposition is that no, you're not going to be able to. It's not going to be sustainable because you're not passionate about it.
I think that's such a powerful sentiment. You got to show up every day. Showing up every day is so important because you compound your interest. If you you show up every day, then you show up in every week. And if you show up every week, you show up every month. Then you're showing up every year. Then you're showing up every decade. And now you're hitting success. And I think that's such a powerful thing to put out there. It's the new style people, they call it getting your reps in. I always make analogies to the gym. I love going to the gym. But if you just get those reps in, if you're doing more weight than you did last week and you're doing it for more reps, you're gonna grow. It's just gonna happen. That's just how science works.
That's exactly right. My husband has this we both love to listen to like different business courses and podcasts and things, and he's heard this in a couple places, and he always brings it up. And I think it's true that the vast majority of people, we overestimate what we can accomplish in a day. We think we're going to change the world today, but we also grossly underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years. So it's those, like you said, you get the reps in, and then next thing you know, you're doing wonderful.
Yeah, I think also it's important. You gotta have patience too, because like you said, you can't change it in one day. Rome wasn't built overnight, as they say, but it's a slow burn. And sometimes, I sometimes get a little antsy over here. I'm like, oh, I gotta do this, this, and this. I want this to happen, but I'm like, I gotta take a step back. I just gotta wait. I gotta wait things for develop, see what opportunities can come my way, sort of expand that surface of your luck. Because I'll say it straight up. I'm lucky. I got very lucky here that it's doing that, the things I do here. I'm grateful for the fact that I can come on here and this is what I do on a weekly basis to talk to these people. But like, as much as I did a lot and my family helped me out, it's really just dumb luck. It's just dumb luck. But it's just because I showed up every day and eventually stuff happened. But Laura, we're down to our last 5 questions.
Law students, are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or short on time in law school? Maybe you just want someone to show you a step-by-step framework to master the topics you're learning in your classes. I know the pressure you're under, and I've got the perfect solution for you. My course, the Law School Operating System, is proven to help you conquer law school with confidence and ease.
Created by Lisa Blasser, a former guest on the podcast and founder of the Law School Success Institute, this course breaks down every subject into manageable main topics that you run through a comprehensive study system to thoroughly prepare you for class and final exams. No more feeling like you need to know everything all at once in the beginning.
But that's not all, Nate. The Law School Operating System also teaches you how to schedule your studying and time effectively. For every topic, you'll know which study step you're on and when you'll complete it every week of your semester. No more mad dash cram sessions, more time with your loved ones. And with my system, you'll walk into your exams knowing you've given 100% of yourself, that there's nothing more you could have done to succeed, and there's no better confidence than that.
Lisa breaks it down like this: 1 class, 1 list of main topics, and 1 system to master each topic. With recorded and live sessions for students available on her website and partnerships with law schools nationwide, the Law School Operating System is here to help you thrive from day 1 to the final exam. Ready to take control of your law school journey and operate at your full potential in law school? Visit www.lisablassers.com today and enroll in the law school operating system. Be sure to use code LSOSNATE10 at checkout for 10% off the recorded course. That is code LSOSNATE10 at checkout. Now, back to the show.
So the first of the 5 questions is something I've been seeing throughout my entire journey during this podcast, that the law is on the precipice of this new era. People are moving towards new technologies, they're using new software, they're using AI tools, anything like that. But sort of the tech stack question per se, what are some technologies you're using at your law firm to enhance your experience, make you more efficient, more effective, cut that overhead?
Yeah, well, we are trying to cut the overhead with, I guess, trying to balance out that, again, the people aspect is just irreplaceable. We don't want to make the assumption that, technology may be cheaper and maybe better, and then forget the fact that, we're representing people, and people want to be, want to be talking to other people. They don't want to plug in forms, and, there are so many things that are, again, more cost effective and probably faster if they're done by AI, but we try to keep a balance. But a couple of the things, we're actually, I don't know if you've spoken to Carl Seelbach, but he is, and I'll send you the name after the podcast, but he's one of the founders of Scribe. And basically what they're doing is they're replacing court reporters with an AI-driven software that is really, slashing the costs of what it is to what it is to take a deposition. And we incur, the law firms, a lot of people don't know how it works behind the scenes, but essentially, usually the law firms will pay these court reporters thousands of dollars to sit there and transcribe what's going on at a deposition or at a hearing or in court. Now, the majority of the time, those costs are only advanced by the law firm, but at the end of the day, they're paid by the client. So when the client, at least in my practice, when the case resolves, we charge that from the settlement. So it charges back to the client. So we take it very seriously that it's our duty to find the most cost-effective solution so that the client is not being charged, unreasonable costs. And, court reporters, with all due respect with what they do, and it's such a noble profession, but at the same time, there has to be a balance. And when the cost is not making sense, or, we have to balance the duty that we have to the client, definitely this new company, Scribe, is disrupting the legal practice in that they are offering this software that transcribes. And it's like, I do it daily. I do voice dictation because I have to be doing 10 things at once. So it's basically, a very, very advanced voice dictation software that has a lot of other, add-ons and benefits. But that's one that is going to, it's already revolutionizing how we practice law, something that I couldn't have even imagined when I was in law school. But that's one that I'd say it's very important.
Yeah, I think that's great. I've never heard of Scribe, so this is my first time ever hearing about it, but it seems like it's slowly flipping the world upside down over here.
Yeah.
I love to hear that, and I love to hear the revolutionize. That's such a great word, because it really is what's going on in the law throughout this whole, doing all these podcasts, is all people talk about, that there's all these new technologies, there's all these new softwares that people are using that, like you said, is helping people get more bang for their buck, not having to take all that court reporting money out, to be able to get the full settlement, get all the money that they're owed. But fourth to last question here, Laura, live on the Lawyers in the Making podcast, official. What are your book recommendations for people out there? Doesn't have to be about the law, just some of your favorite books, something you give a gift to someone.
Well, I have to mention my books,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you, just because of two things. One is they are law adjacent, law related, but also every single last dime of proceeds from the book sales goes to support a nonprofit called Table of Grace. And what Table of Grace does is they provide emergency shelter to foster children. So I don't recommend them just because, hey, they're great books and I'm gonna, it's gonna help me financially. It's going to do nothing for me financially, but it is for a good cause. But my first book contribution was Law Moms. And Law Moms is a book about women lawyers who are trying to balance, ambition and motherhood, and of course in the practice of law. So I definitely recommend that book. It's on Amazon.
I love that. Well, for everyone out there wondering, they'll all be linked below. They'll be in the show notes, so you'll all see it. Don't worry, they're down there. But third to last question, what are the sorts of things that you consume, not food, consume on a daily basis, either through social media, so like X, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Reddit, Substack, any podcasts you listen to that you enjoy that you would recommend to people? What's crossing the transom of Laura's mind on a daily basis?
Oh my goodness. Well, when I'm trying to take a break, I actually do a lot of LinkedIn, reading posts and stuff. I find that people in my network, such as yourself, are incredibly valuable and bring things that are not only interesting, but actually have value that, I love consuming anything related to business, to people, to law. So LinkedIn is definitely high on my list. Of course, but our law firm does a lot of social media marketing as well. And some people ask me like, oh, who does your marketing? I do. I do the marketing. I'm the marketing person. We do have some content creator companies that we work with, but I am the person that's in charge of the marketing department. So I do check Facebook and Instagram, and see how TikTok, see how our ads are doing, and what we can do to improve. And as far as podcasts, obviously yours, I recommend people check out. But also there's a really, really good podcast. I was recently a guest there. It's called Powerhouse Lawyers, and it's by Erin Gerner, who is a former attorney at, actually, she might be a great guest for your podcast, but I'm gonna connect you with her. But she she's a business coach, and she former lawyer, and she is a mom, and she just does it all. But essentially she tries to put out valuable content for women lawyers who either want to leave the traditional practice of law, that they're tired and burned out and it's not a good fit, or like things that are, I guess, aligned with that goal or of making their practices more fulfilling and rewarding, and not just, grinding out and burning out. So Powerhouse Lawyers for sure. It's another recommendation.
Well, Erin, I can't wait to have you on the podcast. I'm just put it out there now. But second to last question here. You got Ramos James Law. You're working on that. You're doing your social media marketing. You're the marketing person. You're working all this time. But what does an ideal Friday night and Sunday morning look for Laura?
Oh, this is funny because in our law firm, we are hybrid. Like some of us are in person, some of us are remote, some are, hybrid, remote, and in person. But for us to stay connected, we do this thing daily that's called the whiteboard. And somebody posts a question for everyone to answer. Like what would you sing at karaoke, forced to do, or like just whatever question, And the question today was very similar. So Friday night, the ideal Friday night is the kids are in bed. Everyone's healthy, people are not having any bad, health situations. And my husband and I are outside on the porch. The weather is beautiful, and we're just catching up about our week. That's like the perfect Friday night.
So, and then a Sunday morning, what does that look?
Yeah, the Sunday morning, well, this is truly just a dream because it has never happened. But if my kids would sleep in, that would be a dream come true. But they wake up by 6 a.m. and
Oh my goodness.
we're just on go mode. We're just on go mode. But from what I hear, it's gonna get better. So one day my Sunday morning will look like this. It's 10 a.m. and I'm completely just sleeping in.
Oh my God. Well, the dream will come true soon, Laura. I swear on my life, it is coming your way. I'm put it out there now, just so you get it. So when you're sitting out there, when you're sleeping in at 10 a.m., I'm like, oh, I remember when Nate was talking about this. It's really happening now. But
for sure.
Laura, final question here. I do this at the end of every single episode, but what are your words of wisdom for these Spiral Law students, the current law students, and the legal professionals out there in the world?
Final words of wisdom: find your passion and don't give up.
Beautifully said. Almost poetic, Laura. But that's the podcast. That's the episode. So thank you so much for coming on here, spreading your wisdom, spreading your experiences. And for everyone out there listening, thank you for tuning in. Check us out, lawyersinthemaking.substack.com, lawyersinthemaking, one word, .substack.com, and I will see you all in the next one.